Hello, my name is Justin Blauhat, and I am one of the EcoCon instructors this summer at camp. And I will be talking to you all about the Scout Law as it pertains to camp staff. So this training has one main objective, and that is for, at the end of the session, you will all be able to explain every part and each part and how it all applies to yourselves as a camp staff member. So what is the Scout Law? Well, the Scout Law is 12 words or 12 points that we all should follow abide as being part of scouting, and in this case, specifically camp staff. So the Scout Law is a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And now, if you don't know that already by heart, and you have to learn it, we will be saying it every day at flags in the morning, so you kind of catch up on it pretty quickly. But that's kind of what this training is about, is so that not only do you know what the words are, but so you know what they kind of mean and why we say them as camp staff. So we're going to start off with a scout is trustworthy. So trust is very important for camp staff, as if we're trusted, that's really how we're successful, right? So we're going to be given duties and responsibilities from our camp director, area or program director, and how we do those jobs reflects just kind of our overall attitude, right? So if we're doing those jobs in a very negative way, it's going to reflect badly on the work, and then we kind of lose the trust of those three positions to do our jobs properly because they're putting trust in us to do those jobs effectively and not just push them off to the side or forget about them. So it's very important that we keep kind of trust with uh, our camp program or area directors. And kind of our full-time job in a sense is to benefit camp. So that's another aspect of putting trust in us to make sure that we're making camp the best it can be and not just slacking off and making sure we're doing our part to make sure camp is benefited from. Another aspect is this is that we are expected to be in uniform at all times while on duty. So that's from in the morning, right when you wake up, on your way to flags, and then obviously before it is time to get quiet down for the night. And obviously that kind of varies depending on each day during the week. But whenever you're supposed to be on duty, you're supposed to be in uniform. And that goes along with trust because obviously Brad or JP or your area director might not be able to see you at all times, but they have trust in us to make sure we're in our full uniform at all times, unless there is a situation where you can't because of a safety issue or aquatics where you have to swim, so on and so forth. But you're expected to be in some form of uniform at all times while on duty. And this also goes on with the days off. So that would be our 24-hour time period from on Saturday to Sunday, where we are expected to still kind of maintain the Scout Law and Scout Oath, even though we're not on duty. And that also goes for a staff night out during the week on Wednesday, where they're still expecting us and putting trust in us to follow all these things and still keep kind of that very good image. Now, a scout is loyal. So not only are we loyal to staff, right? So we're always going to be there for each other. We're going to make sure that we are doing what's best for each other and not hazing or anything like that. We're going to be very loyal. And this allows for us to have a very harmonious balance on camp, because if we're all loyal to each other and we all understand that, camp goes by very well and successfully. And we also have to make sure we're loyal to camp. So this includes preserving camp and just making sure it's overall in a top shape, right? Right, so that might be picking up trash as we go, if we see it on the floor, walking by, but making sure that overall we're being very loyal and making sure that we just keep the overall image very high and making sure that we're doing a good job. And now we are loyal to the campers. They did pay to be here after all. That is a part of it. And we want to make sure that we're doing a good job teaching what we're supposed to be teaching and making sure that they're getting the most out of our program and making sure we're running up everything as effectively as we possibly can. A scout is helpful. And so helpful is really about the attitude. So this kind of starts for scouts or scouters, adults, right as they enter camp, right? We want to make sure we have that helpful attitude, finding their campsites, right? So the USAs, right, their job is to kind of help tour them around camp, making sure they get everything we need, and just kind of being there for them on that first day. And this also applies for everyone on that first day in general, or throughout the week as well. But on that first day, we want to make sure we have a very helpful attitude. And throughout the week, we should want to keep this ideal that a scout's problem is our problem. Because if their week is not good, our week kind of goes down along with it because we want to make sure that they're having a very good time. So if you see a scout who's kind of alone, you can kind of see that something's not going right. You want to try to help them, right? Whether it's finding out about the situation and going to their scoutmaster or camp director if it has to go to that, right? Just kind of making sure that the people that should know about it and just overall helping the situation. Another aspect of being helpful on camp staff is making sure we help other staff members and program areas. Because sometimes some things get crazy in Aqualand and they might need help from other people on staff who are lifeguard trained, or maybe just one staff or EcoCon needs help in running different things, right? We all need help sometimes in our different program areas, and sometimes other areas aren't as busy, and we have to be willing to help each other to make sure that camp just kind of runs in an efficient and very good way. And then obviously helping other staff members, maybe if they just need something real quick before you go teach your next merit badge. But overall, just being very helpful to staff and the other scouters at camp. A scout is friendly. So this is kind of just saying hi to everyone. So if you're walking by, you see a scout, just say hi. You want to kind of keep that friend to all kind of appeal. You don't want to be cliquey. So that's kind of where the all staff part comes in. You want to make sure that you're being friendly and open to every staff member. Sometimes there are cliques that form, but we kind of want to avoid that. So we want to make sure we're all being friendly to all, uh, including everyone on staff, if possible, to do something, and then just being friendly to everyone. A scout is courteous. So we kind of have to remember as camp staff that everything we do reflects on the Boy Scouts of America. It reflects on our council, so Potawatomi Area Council. It reflects on camp, so CLL, and it also reflects on you as a person. And this does not just apply to when we're at camp working. We also have to remember that when we go to staff night out or wherever we go on our Saturday off, that we're keeping the scout law in our lives and making sure we follow all these points and just overall being very respectful to everyone wherever we go. Because at the end of the day, if you're wearing a scouting shirt and they catch on and they're like, hey, that's a Camp Long Lake shirt, and they're not acting very highly, then they won't think highly of camp, and that reflects also on the BSA, so on and so forth. So it's very much required as staff members for us to kind of keep this high image wherever we go. Courteous on staff also applies to making sure we're on time. So whether that's being on time to flags every morning, being on time to lunch, all the meals, flags at dinner, or any of your merit badges, just making sure that you're respecting the time. So whether that's the other staff members' time, the scouts who you're teaching's time, kind of all of those things. You want to make sure that you're just being very respectful of time, and that you're able to be reliable to be on time. This also comes with quiet time. So although camp staff usually ends up staying late or up late past the 10 o'clock taps, some staff members do want to go to bed at 10 o'clock or even before that. So just kind of keeping that respect in the staff area at all times as well. And then overall, just respecting people no matter what. So whether that is their race, gender, etc. Just making sure we're being very respectful to everyone no matter what. A scout is kind. So kindness and consideration for others. Right, so we want to make sure that we're being very kind to all staff, scouts, and adults, and just being considerate of how our actions might affect them. And this also applies to animals in nature, so kind of being just kind to camp in general. So maybe if we see a scout who might be trying to throw rocks at a squirrel or a bunny, that we make sure we like go up to them and be like, hey, let's not do that. Respect camp and all the animals and the property. And this kind of goes with leading by example, where we want to make sure that we're not just telling the scouts to not do these things, but we are also not doing them ourselves, and we're also staying on all trails and not making our own. Just being kind to the environment and all the scouts. Up next, we have obedient. So basically, this is just response. All of your responsibilities are being done well, right? So we all have things we have to do as camp staff, right? So whether it's teaching teaching merit badges, um, being quartermaster and having to get things to different campsites, or changing the toilet paper, or just being in charge of something, right? We all have something to do. That's why we're here. So making sure that our job is not only being done, but being done well. And this is also kind of going along with following the chain of command. So during our patrol cleanups and stuff, that we're making sure that we have our patrol leader and that we're listening to the patrol leader, or within our area that we're going up to our area director if we have a concern that might be minor, just bring it up to them first and then carry out as needed. But the thing with obedience is it does not mean unquestioning obedience. So what that kind of just means is that if you are being asked to do something by the camp director or area director or so on and so forth, that you're not too sure if you should be doing, or if you just don't understand why, it's okay to question or bring up that concern. Obviously, just do it in a very respectful way, but make sure you do it sooner than later, or do it immediately. So if you're not too sure about something, bring it up as you're having that discussion. Uh, it's also not good to just be doing something for the sake of doing something. Scout is cheerful. This one is kind of one of the harder ones for staff members sometimes. Uh, Believe it or not, right? So the main aspect is just kind of keep that smile, keep that laughter, right? Keep all that high energy going, because at the end of the day, scouts look up to us. And if they see we're having a good time, they're not going to get homesick as much. And that's a major thing we want to not happen. Because if they're getting homesick, they're not having a good time, and we're really not doing our job as camp staff. So we want to make sure we always keep that high energy, that cheerfulness, that smile, that laugh, right? Making jokes with them, especially while we're sitting at meals, being cheerful, keeping that smile. And this definitely gets harder throughout the summer, right? So we have kind of like that first week high where we're so excited for the summer, and then week two we're kind of still up there, but then it slowly declines throughout the summer. And that's one thing we want to avoid at all costs, because we want to make sure we keep that smile the same level, if not as equally week one, increasing each week, right? We want to make sure that we always bring that high energy, cheerfulness to everybody. And this in general just leads to success because if the scouts are having a good time, because you're having a good time, they're going to be more active in your merit badges. They're gonna be laughing. You're gonna be making jokes while you're teaching, right? It's just gonna be an overall great time, and this will lead to them not regretting taking your merit badge because you weren't having fun, you weren't smiling, right? And this, stuff happens. I get it. Like personally, last year, during staff week, I lost my dog, and that was very hard on me. But I kept up my smile. I don't know if a lot of people noticed last year, but it's one of those things where stuff happens, and we're there for each other if you need it. But around the scouts, sometimes you just have to keep that smile, and it's also psychology behind that too. Where if you smile, your mood lifts. It's actual science proven that if you smile, you your mood becomes happier. So overall, just keep that smile, keep that happiness up at all times, and this will lead to a very successful program. A scout is thrifty. So this doesn't just mean obviously money, but we do have equipment here at camp. Some that's very expensive, like camp truck and all of those larger objects like Hobart, or just all these things in general that are a bit more pricey that we kind of have to be careful of when we're using it, so we don't break it and then have to spend thousands of dollars on repair, or just buying a new one straight up. Right, so it's very much important part about being thrifty on camp staff because we have to keep these things in mind. We also have to make sure that we're budgeting for supplies. So obviously during merit badge teaching, there might be some things you need. Maybe you have this really cool idea for a way to show erosion in ecocon for environmental science, right? So you need the supplies for that. So making sure that you're being reasonable on the supplies to get for your area, keeping within kind of the area budget, and then only getting what you need for the week, right? Obviously, if you have only 6 scouts the next week, making sure that we request the right amount of supplies so we're not getting enough for 12 scouts, and then we have 6 uh, amounts of leftover, right? Being very thrifty with the supplies we need and how we're using them. And also being thrifty with time. Right? So this will kind of come into play when we're making our lesson plans. And you want to make sure that you're budgeting enough time in your lesson plan to get through everything, but not so it's rushed. So, this can kind of be a tricky thing where sometimes you might budget for some time in your lesson plan, but then you realize in practice it doesn't work that way. So kind of just adjusting your budget as you go to with that, but making sure you're always trying to stay on track and not just getting lost. Sometimes some parts of your lesson plan do go longer because your scouts get really into it, but making sure that you keep it within a scope of where you can still cover everything effectively and not have to rush. A scout is brave. So sometimes as staff members, we do have to go out of our comfort zone a little bit. Like we're not all social butterflies, right? Some of us aren't very good at public speaking or talking at the campfire, and some of us aren't great at that. But that's kind of one reason why I love camp staff so much is it really helps us push ourselves out of our comfort zone to in a good way, right? Because when I first joined camp staff, I was not very good at talking publicly. It's still something I'm trying to work on, but through having to say grace at meals, having to sing songs at meals, all of the skits to bring the troops in, all these things all add up, and you kind of get more comfortable with it, and then it becomes less of a chore and more of something you want to do, like you want to let the troops in because it gets your face out there for the scouts, and then all the scouts know you, and you're just having a good time. Another thing about being brave is that you believe in the Scout Oath and Law, and you chose to follow it, and that's sometimes that's a brave decision that we have to follow all these points, and sometimes it's tricky, right? Sometimes it's not always a crystal clear path on what we have to do. But if you just follow these points, it sometimes makes it a bit easier. Sometimes it's hard on you to have to be loyal to something because you know it might affect something else not as well. But sometimes being brave and just sticking through will get you through it. A scout is clean. This is another important one. Uh, they're all very important, but this is definitely one sometimes staff members don't always follow, right? So we want to make sure we're orderly in our organized workspace. So that would be your program area, making sure that it doesn't look like cluttered. Everything is organized nicely, so that way you can put it away, grab it out right for the next week or the next time you need it that week. Everything's easy to find. You know where everything is. It looks clean because scouts will see a messy work area. Scouts see that, right? They're in that program area. They're going to see it, and then it's going to reflect poorly on you, and they might not think you are eligible to teach that as much because you're so unorganized. And we want to avoid that, right? This also means your sleeping area. So whether you're in a cabin or a tent, to making sure that your area is clean. You don't have clothes everywhere. You don't have shoes everywhere. Um, you're keeping everything very tidy. This also means showering regularly, because we can smell it. There are sometimes some scouts that we all know that don't shower at all during the week, and you don't want to be that staff member either, right? So you want to make sure you're showering regularly, whether that is once a day, twice a day, just making sure you're very clean and showered and not smelling. Your roommates and tent mates will thank you, and so will the rest of staff. This is also making sure we keep very clean language, right? So we want to make sure that we're not swearing up a storm around scouts, or even in staff area, like keeping your language clean. And yeah, making sure you're just overall keeping your mouth clean and not uh, swearing during your lesson by accident, and making sure you're being very conscious of that. I know sometimes some of us, me and myself, or myself included, sometimes we just don't have that filter on, but we want to make sure that we have that filter on at camp. This overall just makes us seem more mature too, and that we're eligible to teach these things, right? Because we're just swearing every sentence, not very good. Staying well groomed. So making sure your hair is not growing too long. Making sure everything's just staying trimmed. Uh, Shaving whenever needed, so on and so forth. Doing laundry. So whether that's doing laundry halfway through the week, having enough clothes for every day, and then doing it at the end of the week, but making sure that you're always wearing clean clothes and not dirty clothes, because that also leaves a smell. We're all outside a majority of the day, so we're gonna get sweaty. Making sure you're doing laundry and that the sweat is not stuck in your clothes. Here are some pictures of those things, right, in case you forget sometimes. We also have some hand soap to make sure you're washing your hands, especially before meals. And reverent. So this one I kind of count as a 12 and a 12 and a 13th point. Because both words in this phrase are kind of very important. Right, so the and of the Scout Law, it's not or, it's not just another comma, it's and reverent, right? So this is kind of stating that we have to follow all the points. We don't get to pick and choose, right? This isn't a grapevine, you pick the bad grapes, right? You gotta follow every single point. And that's just kind of how it goes, right? And then, so as staff, for us to be reverent, so we have things like noon watch that we go to every day, except on Wednesdays when the troops cook for themselves. So this is required for us. This is also a very good way for us to be reverent. But not only does it help us to be reverent. It helps the scouts to be reverent. Because if we are going to noon watch every single day and having a great time and advocating for it, like being at lunch on Monday, being like, hey, to your table, are you guys all going to noon watch? It'll be a good time, I promise. We sing songs. There's always a story that gets told with some great moral value. And then we sing a song at the end. It's a great time. You know, like making sure that you're advocating for that because it is a very important part of the scout law. And you want to go to have fun, and that'll make the scouts want to go to have fun. It allows for us and the scouts to mold their attitudes because, again, kind of following setting the example. If we are staying reverent throughout the summer, by going to noon watches or devotionals, then it will allow the scouts to mold to this idea and want to continue to be reverent. And that is all there is for this presentation. So just to go over, we did talk about all 12 points of the Scout Law and how they pertain to camp staff.